especially. I'm going to probably get the meeting started. Colleen's going to join us. She's got another project, very important, talking about kids, having to do with children themselves. So I'm going to get things going. If you could, my plea is always, please put your name in the chat box and the association that you are from. Betty, you do not need to do that, but everybody else has to do it. Everybody else is Betty, only she's Betty. So if everybody else could put their name in the chat box and their association, that would really greatly help me. And we're going to get started here in a second, as soon as I can understand how to do that. Well, look at this. Magically, Colleen, are you here?
Yes, I'm here, but go ahead and do the roll call and I'll start general membership and then turn over to you for the neighborhood.
Okay, very good. So I'm just going to call out the board members. I actually see some of you, but I'm just going to call your name anyway, even though I know you're here. Michael Albetta.
I am.
And Melinda Bauer.
Here.
Oh, there she is, Melinda. Hello.
Hi.
Louis.
I am here.
Jim Fontanen.
I am here.
Kathy Stubbs.
I'm here.
Abby Laughlin is excused. Colleen.
Here.
Marilyn Mamano. Present. Barbara McGill. I think that Barbara may be calling in. I'll check on that later. Mary Peliquin, here I am. Frankie Lane.
Here.
Cool. Hi, Frankie.
Hello.
And Dennis Ulmer.
Here.
That is a roll call board, and I do appreciate all of you putting your name and civic association in the chat box for me. Everybody knows who she is. So, all right, Colleen, I'm all set to hand it over to you for now.
Okay, great. And I'm just going to remind folks to mute if you're not speaking, if that's okay. Thank you so much. So agendas on the slide, general membership updates for this month. We have 3 announcements. One is just a reminder that we take a break in July. So there is no general meeting in July. You guys can take a break, right? We do hope to go back to in-person, right? We're looking at either August or September, depending on logistics. We're likely headed back to the 8th floor. And we're just trying to figure out the mechanics for that. So we'll let you know. And I just want to thank those that have volunteered to devote time to interviewing the final candidates for the police chief of Fort Lauderdale PD. So thanks to all of you. That was a specific ask of specific people to cover all 4 districts and also emphasize high crime neighborhoods and red line district area. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Mary. I'll stop sharing and we can go over another project that the council is working on.
Mary, unmute. Mary.
How did I ever shut myself up? That's so unusual for me. So I believe you're talking about the toolkit, correct?
Correct.
Yes. So some of you may or may not know that the council is putting together a toolkit for neighborhoods to use to create their own civic associations or homeowners associations. And we have asked the board members to create videos in front of each section of the toolkit. And so I'm the person that introduces the toolkit, and I'm almost kind of embarrassed to have you see my video because, like any good actor, we don't like to see ourselves on screen, but I'm about to do that right now. So let me first understand how to do that. And here we go, I think. And please play. Play.
It's the middle of the slide.
It's the arrow in the
Right
middle.
there in the middle,
The
Mary.
middle, go down.
Go down,
Go down, Mary.
move
Right
your
there?
cursor
Okay.
to the middle.
It's the little arrow in the middle on the bottom.
I don't have that little arrow.
You don't?
Try clicking on the screen.
Here we go.
There you go.
No, that's not doing it. Can you see me at all? My little, Jesus.
Yeah, just click on the screen itself. Maybe that'll make it go.
Huh. Your screen sharing. Okay, thank you very much. Pause recording. Hi, da. Try this.
You can't see the arrow, but we'll direct you. Bring your cursor down, move it over to the right a little bit more. Move your cursor over to the center of the screen. Can you move your cursor to the right a little bit?
Yeah,
Okay,
oh,
okay.
it went too far.
Now you can take it back a little bit more.
A little more.
Stop,
There.
stop, go
Go
down.
down.
Keep
One
going.
more.
Down. A little bit
Click.
more.
Just click. See what happens.
She's not in the box yet. Keep going
I
down.
know.
No, now it's gone. Here we go. Go back.
Go down.
Why am I so stupid? Okay, come on. Let's see. I actually have totally lost the, okay, let's just start.
Mary, try to find the play button in your computer keyboard.
I am. It's like nothing,
On your computer keyboard, not on your screen. Computer
Right.
keyboard.
well, that I don't know, Louis. I only know how to make it go on my screen. Let's see this. Hang on for a second. Share, hide. I apologize that I don't, here. Now it should go.
Can you move your cursor down lower?
It won't go down below that. That's
No,
the
I see
reason
that.
why, because
Right.
Oh. No. I'm
you
sorry.
don't have a play button on your keyboard on top of the numbers,
No.
maybe? Okay, your computer is faulty.
Certainly it's not me.
Okay, if I show your prior video?
Sure.
Okay.
Really
so
annoying.
Yeah, this is just an
Better
example
than nothing.
of,
How about stop sharing, then start the video and then share? Maybe you can, when you stop sharing, you'll see it.
Okay. Okay, let's try it one more time.
we'll try one more time and then I'll play the one I have.
Okay.
Oh, it's going. Okay, no,
Going? I don't hear anything.
no.
I'm sorry.
You're back in the same square one.
Stop sharing completely.
Okay.
Start the video and then share your screen. That one.
Colleen, show the old one, please, because I clearly.
The reason is that you are recording and you're also trying to share a video. You cannot do two at the same time.
Okay.
Okay.
Here's
Here's
the
the
old one. There's some
All right.
plugs in it.
Yep, this is the prior example, and Mary does not introduce herself in this, but it conveys the same sentiment. And each of these selfie videos are going to introduce different chapters in the toolkit. Just gives you a sense of what we're talking about, what we're trying to be, which is inclusive, helpful, and provide a useful resource.
Hello, and welcome to the
Hello, Mary.
Fort Lauderdale Civic Association's Toolkit. The purpose of this toolkit is to assist neighborhoods in creating their own civic association, and also as a reference for existing Fort Lauderdale civic associations. A civic association is a group of neighbors and sometimes business owners who work together for changes and improvements such as safety, beautification, and sometimes really fun social events. They fortify rules and regulations through education, communication, and by looking out for each other. The following 9 chapters are meant to be simple, real simple tools like this wrench. Even I know how to use this wrench. Or maybe something like this, a screwdriver. Everybody knows how to use this. Or these pliers. When you need pliers, nothing else will do. And maybe, and hopefully sometimes, but hopefully never, but maybe sometimes this could happen that you need this. Nothing should seem too complicated, like these, whatever they are, or too overpowering, like this. However, if things are not clear or you have questions, remember that you have all of the members of the Council of Fort Lauderdale Civic Associations for support. Feel free to reach out to us at our website, CFLCA.org, and click on Contact Us. One of us will get back to you in a jiffy.
Ay. So I have a better one than that, but thank you very much for the applause. But the idea is, to make the toolkit as engaging as possible, using all of us and our wonderful acting skills. So that's the idea of that. And
So,
we want to encourage other neighborhoods to become part of the council or become their own civic associations. We have about 42, 43 civic associations or neighborhoods involved in the council, and there are, I think, over 80. So hopefully we can get some more with us. Thanks, guys.
wonderful job. And there's a lot of good resource in the actual chapters. So we look forward to sharing that out in the next few months. So thank you very much, Mary, for your example. And we have wonderful videos from Barb McGill and Kathy Stubbs. So it just very exciting and a new kind of cool digital way to be sharing out useful information. And Hal Barnes' department is going to be doing one too. So we can't wait, Hal. All right, so we're going to now start introducing our guests. Has Chris Lagerbloom joined? Because we're going to hear city updates from our city manager, our COVID update from Dr. JJ, and we're joined this month by the wonderful director of the OMB, Laura Reece. And then if we have anyone, I don't recall if we do, but neighborhood round robin speeches, and then treasurer's report and the final voting on prior month's meeting minutes. With that, is Chris here?
I am.
You are? Okay, so I'm going to stop share. And Chris, just let me know if you want me to pull up anything on boring. Otherwise, I will turn things over to you. Just provide general updates. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So good evening, everybody. Happy June, I guess. We're working our way towards summer and schools are starting to let out. So we're seeing some different activities during the day, and Fort Lauderdale's ready for storm season. We're ready for the summertime that we all enjoy, where the heat kicks in. But city's doing well. Let me talk about a couple things tonight. See if there's any questions on any other topics. Colleen asked me to mention and talk about where we are with respect to the boring company and some of the articles, or even the news story that you saw on more of a national level this morning. What does that mean to Fort Lauderdale, and what are we talking about? I might mention a quick update in our police chief search process. And I won't steal Laura's thunder. She's going to talk all about the budget, although I seem like I have talked about it about 8 times today. So maybe I could go for 9, just with some real high level observations of where we are as a city. And then I'll turn it over and you'll get a great presentation from her tonight as to how we tackle this thing that is pushing $1 billion at this point, and how we make sure that we deliver good services as a result of the revenues that come in through our doors. So I'll start with the boring company, and then we'll go from there. So we have obviously we've been talking about interconnectivity of transportation and what the future of transportation looks like. Is that above grade? Is that flying? Is that underground in the form of tunnels? Do we move people at the surface level? All of our commissioners have, with the exception of Commissioner McKenzie, and he says he will very soon, have visited with the boring company, a company based headquartered out of Las Vegas and in Southern California and Los Angeles. I believe now they have a Texas office as well. Have really started to capitalize on the futuristic technology of putting something underground in a tunnel. We went out to the West Coast looking for a train tunnel so that we could get underneath the New River. And we went there with people from Broward County, from Brightline, and us, and said, we keep hearing this number thrown out there of $1 billion a mile, $1 billion a mile. this example of this tunnel that was built in Las Vegas underneath their convention center happened at a cost substantially less than that. And when I mean substantially less, the difference between literally $1 billion a mile and 10 to 15 million per mile. And so when you look at costs that are that significantly reduced, everybody's eyes lit up a little bit as to how we would be able to get the train under the new river in our downtown and not have to put a bridge at 55 feet or 82 feet or even at grade right through the downtown. So, you know, we explored what they've done in Las Vegas. They also have tunnels in progress in San Bernardino, California, as well as Hawthorne, California, just outside of LA. Those are more their test tunnels. So there are examples of tunnels that are built in other places than just Las Vegas. And they are commencing upon a 30-mile Vegas loop that they are doing from their, they're building it from the balance sheet. So they're building a free tunnel for the city of Las Vegas just to prove that the technology works and that it does what they say it does. And, you know, so our interest has been piqued a little bit. There's some discussions down in Miami as well as Fort Lauderdale. The process to get underneath the new river is not a city process, that's a state process. So, you know, we looked at that and said, you know, we can get you in the process, so at least you're considered. But then the discussion started to talk about how we move people in our city east and west, because we've always had the coastal link talked about, east-west connector. And if really there's an example of a technology that can be as cost-effective as this one appears to be, we said, well, we're willing to talk about it further. You know, at this point, we don't have a proposal from them to build a tunnel. If we get one in, it will be thoroughly vetted and thoroughly competed, just like we do other proposals that find us. The question often gets brought up, well, can you tunnel in Florida because we're underwater and the water table's there? The non-engineering answer is yes, that, you know, the tunnels that have been built to this point have been built underwater. It's all a function of the equipment that's used and the polymer that's used to seal it. And so we could get engineers on to talk more about exactly how that process works. You know, it's one of those things that I think is very possible. So, you know, then the idea of how do we fund this comes to the table. And there's no one funding source. If we were to get a proposal that we move forward with. We've started discussions with multiple different organizations. I had great conversation with one of our state representatives talking about some surplus funds that we all maintain in our building fund after they changed the law on us a couple of years ago. There's potentially some discretionary matching funds out there that the state agencies might want to lend to the project so that they can have some connection to it. There's transportation dollars out there that are available. So it'll be a cobbling together of an assortment of different funding strategies if we choose to move forward. So that's a quick update on the boring company. You know, we saw in the news today where they say, you know, hasn't worked in Texas, hasn't worked in Washington, D.C., hasn't worked in a couple of the other places that they've tried it. You know, digging into that a little bit, the reason that it hasn't worked is because of the regulation, the over-regulation, in my opinion, of some of the state laws that exist. You try to go build anything in California above ground, it's difficult, let alone try to put it underground. And so, you know, I think we've got a forward-thinking state. We've had support from the state level on down to the local level, that we're a state that's different than some others, and that if new technology is out there that is going to transform the way we move, that we should be open to it and explore it rather than discount it and just push it to the side. So if there's a way for Fort Lauderdale to be on the front of that newness and new way of moving people around, I think it's definitely worth exploring, and how it could impact what we see at the surface level. You know, obviously there's got to be an impact, positive impact to those that are on the surface. If we were to move forward with some type of a downtown to beach connection, that would just be a first of hopefully many connections. Frankly, the president of the company told me specifically that if all you're looking for is a first tunnel that takes you 3 miles in each direction, we're not really interested in building that. Because we don't think that that's what leverages our technology to your success long term. To give you some sense, there's some directness to the transport in a tunnel, and what I mean by that is when we were in Los Angeles looking at that model, you know, we left a location in LA and drove for about 10 and a half minutes to get to the entrance of the test tunnel that they had built there, and what took us 10 and a half minutes or so to drive we ended up in their tunnel, and within 92, 93 seconds, we were back to where we started. And that just gives you some sense as to the directness and efficiency of what moving people in this type of system does. So that's a quick update on the boring company, and we'll react if we have a proposal to react to. Touching quickly on our police chief search, that's moving along. We have announced 8 semifinalists, and that's an important distinction, semifinalists. It's when we get to the finalist group that we'll really have some interaction with the elected officials, et cetera. But our 8 semifinalists will be in town this week, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We have 3 internal candidates from our police department and 5 external candidates. They'll be here Friday to get to know each other. Saturday, we've got several forums planned, community forums, forums with the Fraternal Order of Police, Black Police Officers Association, the faith-based community, other community type groups. And that's all being coordinated by the recruiter and our HR department. And so I know they've reached out to Colleen as well to have the council's involvement in those community forums that'll happen this Saturday. And this Sunday, we will have 8 interviews with the 8 finalists. Interview panel. I will be on that interview panel with our HR director and assistant city manager, Tarlisha Smith, who's a labor attorney by training, and just a really great asset to our organization. Recently retired Assistant Chief Renee Hall from the Dallas Police Department will be coming into town to participate on that interview panel, as well as local attorney Michael Dutko, who represents in many circumstances, either represents police officers or, as was at one point in his life, a police officer, but represents that legal community. And I think between the 4 of us, that's a good, hope to say that's a good group to take the group from 8 to 4, and then we'll finish out the process towards the end of the month. I'll give you an idea who the candidates are, just so you can have some sense. Internal to our organization, we have Acting Assistant Chief Frank Sousa has applied, Major Dana Swisher has applied, Captain Bill Schultz has applied. Those are the 3 internal candidates. External candidates in no certain order. Current Assistant Chief Heather Morris from the Houston Police Department is a semifinalist. Current Chief Orlando Rolone from the Orlando Police Department is a semifinalist. Recently retired Assistant Chief Larry Soroto from Pittsburgh Police Bureau of Police is in the process. Current Police Chief from Aurora, Illinois, Kristen Zeman is a semifinalist, and recently retired Assistant Chief Dennis Jackson from the Miami Police Department. And that rounds out the balance of the 8 that have risen to the top in this process, and we'll try to get that to a shorter list of 4, and then make a placement after that. So very satisfied with this process that we've been through. You've heard a little bit of my frustration in prior processes, but I've got to say this one has really landed a good pool of diverse, knowledgeable, forward-thinking 21st century leaders in law enforcement. So I think, unfortunately, their job is to make my job hard, which is to make the picking of the right person hard. And I think they might have done that. So we'll see what we can make happen in the next couple of weeks, and we'll move forward with the police chief placement. Touching quickly, and then I won't steal her thunder. Laura's done a great job, her and her team, with our budget preparation this year. Believe it or not, we put a budget in place that goes into effect October 1, and we give ourselves about 60 days to not think about budget, and then we start planning for budget again. So we've been building this one since about February. All funds budget, we're starting to push, don't have that number exactly yet, but starting to push $1 billion in all funds budget. We got good news out of the property appraiser. When he came and talked to the commission, he told the commission that there would see a property digest increase of about $5-point-something million. In fact, that came in at about 9.9. So that was a decent news. I'm pleased to say that today we delivered a structurally balanced 2022 fiscal budget that I think will carry us through for the next fiscal year. We're not recommending a millage rate increase. And we are providing for Many capital projects to occur in the budget, just over $5.8 million in seawall improvements. The finishing of Fire Station 13 on the beach with the funding necessary to do that to finally close out the fire bond that's been over our head for so many years. Roads, sidewalks, bridges, pedestrian crosswalks on Los Olas Boulevard, ADA compliant bus stops, many of the things that are highlighted in the budget, in addition to the things that we just have to do to keep the city functioning and functioning well. So that's a snapshot. The key phrases there are no millage rate increase, structurally balanced, and meets the needs of the city for the next year, in my estimation. Where it goes from here is it will be presented tomorrow night to the Budget Advisory Board. Commission will have to set the maximum millage rate in July, and then we'll have some public hearings in September leading into October when the budget would be implemented. So that's all I'm going to steal from Laura tonight. She and her team have done a great job, and she can dive right into those weeds. Let me check the chat real quick and see if there's any questions. Are any tunnels besides Las Vegas actually operational? I think the word operational, probably Bill, what you mean is operational to the public. The first one that has opened to public, meaning the public comes to it, gets in it, rides in it every day, is Las Vegas. And the second one will be an extension of that system underneath the Las Vegas strip. There are other operating tunnels, but they're operating in the form of a test environment. They're in the state of California, in Southern California, as I mentioned. And I see Riverside Park is here, late but here. So welcome, Riverside Park. Any final plans on the new police department, and will SBCA be informed and involved since it affects Sailboat Bend Civic Association? Yeah, so we're still working through the final plans for the police department. It's just getting better as we refine it. There will be an opportunity for people to weigh in on it, although it is being built within the guidelines of development that would be allowed on that site. What's being proposed right now is a 3-story structure, about 187,000 square feet, with a 350 or so vehicle parking deck to the rear. It's a very iconic, modern looking building that pays some respect to the heritage of the building that exists there now. And we'll hopefully get to a place where they are going under contract with buying of the materials necessary to build the tunnel as we get into the October-November timeframe of this year. So right now the cost of construction is exceptionally high, and the price of materials is high. You buy less steel, you buy less wood, you buy less everything with the prices as they are right now. So we're trying to time the purchasing of the project at the right time so that we maximize what we can get with the funds that we have available. And but everything is full speed ahead there. And when the time is right for us to engage the neighborhood, we're just not probably quite there yet. We're starting to engage the commission at our public meetings. So you can look for regular police building updates on the conference meetings. And at those meetings, we'll be sharing renderings, et cetera, with the commission. Once we get to a point that we're fairly honed in on what we think where we are as a landing project, we'll obviously bring it more into the community. Next question was any update on the P3 proposal for the one-stop shop? The only update I have at this point is we have been provided with a comprehensive agreement for our review. I don't have a date that's going to get in front of the commission at this point. I don't have a date that review will be final. All I know is that one was delivered to the city attorney's office, and he'll take a stab at it typically before I take a stab at it. And that's only because he's got a couple extra minutes to take a stab at it, and I value his feedback. So we'll let him look at it from a legal sufficiency perspective, and then I'll take a stab at it from a business perspective. But that's a new change since the last time we were together, is we do actually have a comprehensive agreement in hand to react to. Any federal funds available to help with the cost of the tunnel? There might be. The federal funds come with tremendous amount of strings. And so as I process that in my head, when we look at what the benefit of a federal fund is versus what it detracts from or takes away from a project and the amount of time it causes us to get that project done, we may look very strongly towards how we don't inject federal funds into this first leg, if in fact we build a first leg, but then it's keenly teed up for additional funds moving forward when we wouldn't be necessarily with the interest of moving pretty quick. So yes, longer term, maybe it's short term, maybe not short term. When will the comprehensive agreement be made public? It'll be made public once we've gotten to a point that it's negotiated sufficient that it's ready for commission presentation. And then it would publish on the evening agenda, just like any other comprehensive agreement would, with a resolution either to support or not. And the commission would consider it at that then public meeting. We see the proposal for the park before it goes to the commission for review. Probably not, and that's because it's not subject to disclosure until it comes forward with the comprehensive agreement for the commission to take action on. And that's just a function of compliance with the law. Not that I have any interest in hiding it from anybody, but I would encourage you to, again, reach out to the proposer and ask them to voluntarily disclose it. I'm just unfortunately bound by the law to keep it as a part of the shade process until such time as it's ready to meet the public process. Bill says, I'm not sure that at this time we should go with a teletechnology that's only been open to the public in one place. Hard to really assess the risk and benefit. Sure, there's some obviously there's some risk with anything that's new, it'll be incumbent upon us as we consider it to weigh the pluses and the minuses, the pros and the cons, and try to make good decisions. So we can't make it any older than it is, because it is frankly very, very new. But sometimes Fort Lauderdale's known for being a little bit innovative, and this commission has a lot of interest in doing things and getting things done and being leaders as opposed to followers. And if this fits in that category, that might be why they choose to move forward. Leanne, I see that, asked numerous times and they'll not disclose. Unfortunately, that's not something I can pressure them into doing. I'm happy to have a discussion with them again, just to say that we've talked about it again at a council meeting. And if that happens to free it up, I'll see if there's anything I can do to help. Can the commission demand that the proposer meet with the community? They cannot. And that's part of the unsolicited proposal process. What the commission could do is just reject the proposal. So, it's not as though the commission is powerless. They certainly aren't, but they could not cause somebody to violate the law or even encourage them to. Then we end up just losing in court because we pressured somebody to do something that they could then hold against us. So I don't see the commission demanding it. I can see them encouraging it. But ultimately, if the commission doesn't want to move forward, they can simply reject the proposal. Defer a decision to allow for time. Commission always has the authority to defer any item that comes before them, whether it's this item or anything else. That will be up to them when it makes its way to them. All right. Anybody have any questions? I tried to keep up with them as they came in by chat. Does anybody have any questions on any topic other than even the three I brought up? And I'm happy to field whatever you might have.
I think we're good, Chris. I think we need to move on, if that's okay with you. I think we've talked about the high level topics. Dr. Guess is asking about the park bond. But yeah, I think, unless there's an outstanding urgent issue with everyone's, with respect, I'd like to move on to our next speaker, if that's all right.
Absolutely. I'll touch on Dr. Getz's question just real quick because I can answer it. That parcel was acquired because it met the criteria of being walkable within 10 minutes of an area that didn't have a park in the city. So we acquired the land while it was available and unbuilt. There is not a time frame to build on it. It will obviously have to go through the public process so we know what the community wants there, and then we'll position it for actual construction. So that was more of an acquisition because of its geographic location.
Okay, super.
Great.
Thank you, Chris. Really appreciate your monthly updates, your continued leadership, and especially right now, the care and cautious process with which you're going about the new chief selection. So thank you very much. We look forward to having you back next month.
Sounds great. Sounds great. I'll be around if you need anything. Thank you.
Super, Chris. Thank you. We're now going to go to our beloved Dr. JJ for regular COVID updates, which we may be hearing less and less of over time. I will just ask you, JJ, straight off. Have we seen anything since Memorial Day burble up, right? And then I have questions around just a puzzlement with the Florida Department of Health is no longer going to be publishing stats, which I think, okay, we're down and everything's better, but is that a good idea? And also now there's going to be a fine imposed for those that require or ask for a vaccine. I just don't understand the mindset for that, especially given the potential for mutations and variants coming from elsewhere. So with that, JJ, if you're ready, I'll turn the floor over to you and have you
Okay.
share with us.
Okay, so let's take one question at a time. So as far as the numbers, about a week or two ago, I was down to 0 patients with COVID in the hospital, myself. There were still a handful there, but myself, I was down to 0. As of about 2 weeks ago, those numbers have started coming up again, but even so, I only have 4 or 5 patients on my service, maybe twice as many in the hospital. So the numbers have remained exceedingly low. What we do know so far is that about 50% of the people in the US have been fully vaccinated. And what I mean by that is adults. The numbers vary a little bit. I've seen it as low as 47%. I've seen it as high as the mid 50s, close to 60% fully immunized. But let's say for the sake of argument, about 50%. About an additional 10% have received the first of the 2 immunizations. So, you know, probably within the next few weeks, we will be at about 60 to 65% fully immunized adults. Now, other data that has come out is that of those people that are not immunized, over 75% of them have come out very clearly and said, we have no interest in getting immunized, period. And 25% of those that are still outstanding, you know, either haven't decided yet or they are open to be convinced. But it's quite a large number of people that for whatever reason have dug in their heels and said, we will not get immunized, period. So what does that really mean? We're talking about herd immunity. In order to achieve herd immunity, you see figures anywhere between 80 and 90% of the population either having been vaccinated or having had disease. Now, we can say that probably 15, 20% of the population has had disease already. Add that to the 60% of people that will be immunized within the next few weeks, fully immunized. So we're reaching that 80% threshold already. So that is extremely, extremely encouraging figures, as long as the vaccine holds up. As far as private employers are concerned, it's really a very tough sell. There are many employers that require their employees to receive vaccination for the flu, annual flu, especially in healthcare. And if you don't get that vaccine, you cannot work in our facility. I'm a private employer. I can decide if that is what I want for my employees. And you as an employee have the choice to say, I have no interest, thank you very much. I'm going to look for a job somewhere else. Now, as far as COVID is concerned, this has taken a very, very different approach. But when you read, for example, the Florida legislation that was passed, healthcare is excluded out of that. So it are other employers, but healthcare is excluded from that. But even so, you know, you're going to run into very interesting situations. For example, the cruise lines want the entire staff and the passengers to be vaccinated in order to take a ship out to sea. Why? Very close quarters, very high risk of cross-contamination. And we saw what happened on some of the cruise ships in the early days. The governor has said, no, you cannot mandate that. So what has happened now is Royal Caribbean announced in the last 24, 48 hours that they will no longer be mandating their passengers to be vaccinated. Well, I had a cruise personally. I had a cruise scheduled for December, and guess what? If that is the way Royal Caribbean is approaching it, I'm probably going to be canceling that cruise. I don't need to take the remote, and it is a remote risk because honestly, you know, if you're vaccinated, the likelihood that you will contract disease is low. But imagine for the sake of argument that 1/3 of the passengers are not immunized. They start contracting COVID. The ship comes back to port. Guess what? I would be quarantined likely with the other passengers, or if there is a breakout on the ship, it would be a problem. So that is what I foresee as a problem moving forward when these ships come back to port, and you may have dozens upon dozens of people being disembarked of the ships with COVID who are not necessarily Florida residents, US residents, or whatever it may be. So that may be a problem that I envision in the future. But right now, all signs are that things are going very well. As far as the numbers that you discussed, the numbers no longer being published, I don't think that that's a wise idea, because numbers in many ways tell the truth. You cannot massage the numbers to a certain extent. You can, but to a certain extent you can't. If the numbers start going up dramatically, that would be a signal that something is failing. Either we're having breakthrough through the vaccines, or there is a new cluster, or maybe a new disease process, whatever it may be. I think, stopping collecting the information, not necessarily the best of ideas. But I think that's more a political decision than a scientific decision. As far as me continuing to come to your meetings, I mean, I'd be happy to update you guys, but as less and less disease is available and around, I think the usefulness of these updates becomes less and less, unless something changes. And at that point, Colleen, you always know where to find me.
Thank you, JJ. There's 2 questions in the chat, and we certainly want to do something officially to acknowledge all of your guidance and information throughout the pandemic. You've been our trusted source, our own our own local Dr. Fauci. We're very, very grateful to you. But pointing you to the 2 questions, just, how do we interact with people who don't want the vaccine or say they've had COVID and don't need it? Is there any good language that we could use?
Well, the language that I use is a language of statistics. Most people are concerned about the side effects of the vaccines. So I go right for it. Let's say they are on J&J, which is a non-RNA virus. We say that we know for sure that one woman died of complications, cavernous vein sinus thrombosis, and a few other women got very sick. But let's say 3-4 people died out of 8 million doses administered. So you're really talking about what? 1 in 3 million, 1 in 4 million people that died from a complication of the vaccine. Tragic, don't get me wrong. Let's go to the other vaccine. Maybe 10, 15 people had anaphylactic shock from the vaccine, but they are 80 million doses administered, give or take. So again, you're looking at these very, very low numbers, maybe like 1 in 6 million, 1 in 5 million, whatever the number may be. We have 500,000 people plus that have died of COVID out of a population of 330 million. That's 1 in 580. So 1 in 580 versus 1 in like 6 million, you're looking at over a 10,000 difference in mortality rate between a complication from the vaccine versus a complication from COVID. I'll take the vaccine any day.
But just to clarify, people that have had COVID still need the vaccine.
Yes, so that comes to the other question that was raised about duration of immunity associated with the vaccine. We do know that people that had natural disease have had recurrent disease. And the issue is that not everybody has a very similar immune response to natural disease as the next person. And some people have undetectable antibody titers. Now, does not mean that they have no immunity, because you have a B cell immunity and a T cell immunity, to keep it simple. And we cannot necessarily assess how well the full immune responses of individuals. What we do know that people with natural disease have had recurrent disease. As far as the vaccine is concerned, that has happened as well. Some people after vaccination have caught COVID, but it was extremely mild disease, like a common cold, not even like the flu. Whereas people who have had recurrent natural disease, some of them have been extremely sick, including intubated, vented, and died. So yes, people that have had natural disease, the recommendations are to be vaccinated between 30 to 90 days, but no later than 90 days after natural disease, or if they got monoclonal antibodies or convalescent plasma during their recovery process, then they would say to postpone that for 3 months, meaning taking it out to 90 days. But even those people that have had natural disease, the recommendations are still to get immunized.
Wonderful. And Tara's question is next.
Okay.
Herd immunity.
Herd immunity. Herd immunity is really hard to assess. We don't know what the incidence is of natural disease in the community. What has been done, for example, I believe it was in Boston, they went through the sewage system and looked at the concentration of COVID in the sewage. And they realized that that was much higher than the number of reported people would generate, that amount of antibodies in fecal material. And based on that, they were trying to extrapolate for every 10 people that present to healthcare, there might be another 10, 15, 20 people, I don't remember the exact statistics, that have had disease and didn't necessarily present to healthcare. So that's how they have extrapolated, but that's purely extrapolations. We really don't know what the numbers are in the community because mild disease, we don't know. Antibodies, so you say, well, maybe we can test people with antibodies. Yes, but if somebody gets tested more than 3 months after natural disease, their antibodies may be down to 0. So that may not be a very accurate way of measuring it as well. So honestly, we may not know what the incidence was in the community. But as I said, many of these people lose their natural immunity and would still need to be vaccinated. So, for a while we may be good, but in the future, who knows? What else?
And then the question is about advisory boards, and it's a city decision, right? Chris, if you're still here, I will just ask this question. I know that the executive order prohibits any further policies or processes for COVID restrictions, but through the pandemic, we have all been accustomed and gotten comfortable with a hybrid approach to meetings. And it is a fact that some people are going to continue to be uncomfortable, COVID or not, with coming back to in-person meetings. I guess I'm just not clear why hybrid options are excluded or not allowed. It can be separate and apart from COVID. But I think about even some of the folks on this call tonight, they're going to want to continue to participate, but would only do so remotely. Isn't that an option that should be provided? And couldn't we call it something other than a COVID restriction?
Yeah, so I'll try to talk to that just real briefly. We don't think so. And the reason we don't think so is the executive order is very clear. It prohibits local government and county governments from establishing or enforcing anything that can be determined to be a COVID restriction. And here's what, I'm not the lawyer, but here's what the lawyers have told me, is that if we had something that went for 18 months because it was a COVID restriction, whether that was a social distance requirement, a mask requirement, a virtual meeting component requirement, a hybrid component meeting requirement, if all of those were in place because we quote called them COVID restrictions, we can't all of a sudden the day after the executive order change our mind and say, oh, no, now they're just rules. And so that's where we run into a bit of a problem. We also have a resolution on the books that says when people can, when people can call into a meeting and participate virtually, that our commission adopted back historically. And there's a very, very narrowly focused set of criteria that even allow for a call in. And anytime I use the word commissioner, I translate that to advisory board member because those meetings are also noticed. They're also in the sunshine. They allow for public participation. It's all about access. And so I wish I had better news there, but I'm told that this order was pretty compelling and to do anything but come back in person in June was not advised. And so that's why as a commission, we're all back in person. If I see that there's any wiggle room there, that's great. We'll see if we can exploit it. The good news is we're right upon the summer break. So we're going to have an additional couple of months to buy us some time too. So Bill asked the question, board members are allowed to call in during exigencies, just can't vote. Why can't the public do the same? Again, it's about where the where the public meeting is occurring. And if the public meeting is occurring in the commission chambers, and that's where we're back to, and that's where access is allowed, that's where we have to hear the public interaction. So I'd like to see if I can get a more clear, concise opinion from our city attorney. I'll certainly send it to you, Colleen, but that's when I was asked to make the call as to whether or not we came back in person or not, it wasn't with many options if we were going to adhere to the order that was issued by the governor.
And I respect that. Adhering to the order is great. I guess the thing is, I mean, we've learned a lot during this period, right? And one of the things that we've learned is that there are improvements to the processes that we have in place today. And one of those is allowing for remote participation. It's not hard. We're in a digital world now. Take it as an evolution and an improvement to the current process, as opposed to violation of the executive order. But anyway,
and nothing against any of you all, but this is much easier for me tonight to be here in my kitchen table and being able in 5 minutes to be on a meeting with my son and his baseball team for their spring season. And I wouldn't be able to do that if I was at City Hall with you all. So not that I don't want to see everybody, but yes, I absolutely get it. And very good points. Maybe the law what we will see as a result of coming out of the COVID world is we'll see some of the laws change. And because we've gotten so good at what we're doing. I just want to make sure we don't run into any problems and that none of the decisions that our commission is making or our boards are making is ever challenged, particularly quasi-judicial or public hearings. So, bear with us. We're going to continue to learn as we go. And if there's a way to implement a virtual component, I'm game, because it allows me to do more in the same amount of time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Chris. And I know you have to run, so I really appreciate it. And thanks for the update. And JJ, hats off to you. You're hearing the gratitude in the chat. We will have you back. We do appreciate you. Everybody, look at that. Thank you, Doctor. You are and have been a beacon of light for all of us. That's great.
Thank you all.
So we appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing you again. We'll see whether that's August or September or.
Let me know, Colleen.
Okay. All right. Super.
Stay safe.
You too. Thank you so much. All right. Moving right along, folks. We now have the pleasure and delight of introducing Laura Reece. And I just want to say this. We have been blessed, delighted by several of our presenters over the last several months. Nick Harris, TAM Director Ben Rogers, Sustainability Director Dr. Gassman. I believe that you will be equally delighted by Laura's presentation this evening. And I will just share with you, I won't read through all of this, but 18 years of government finance and management experience, prior roles with other jurisdictions, 9 years with the city. She is now the director of the Office of Management and the Budget. Her credentials, multiple credentials, are listed. And interestingly, but not surprisingly, what a finance person is passionate about is not a good cup of coffee or a nice glass of wine. It's about helping decision makers make sound, data-driven plans to ensure long-term financial sustainability for our community. It is our pleasure and honor to have you here with us tonight, Laura. And I've got your slides teed up and I'm ready to go when you say so. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the nice welcome, and thanks for inviting me to be part of it today. Would it be easier if I share my slides so I don't have to tell you to move along, or is it preferred for you to do it? I'm good with either way.
Whatever you'd like. Let me just make sure that you have the ability to share.
Okay.
And I will give you co-host privileges now.
Either way is fine. I can let you know when to move along otherwise. Either.
Okay. Whichever you'd like.
Let me see if that'll let me. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. This weird Zoom thing came up too. All right. So again, thank you, Colleen and Mary, and to the whole board for having me tonight. As Colleen mentioned, my name is Laura Reece, and I'm the director of the Office of Management and Budget for the city. I know that I'm standing between you all and dinner and some other things, so I'll try to keep this as interesting as possible. I understand that not everybody thinks budget is as interesting as I do. So, but with that, I'm going to tell you a little bit today about, I don't know, is it clicking? Okay. I'm going to tell you a little bit today about what the mission of the Office of Management and Budget is, about our budget process, about our long-term financial planning, and about ways that you as citizens and others can become involved in the budget process. So the Office of Management and Budget, we have two divisions, the Budget CIP and Grants Division and the Structural Innovation Division. So I'll tell you about each of the divisions. The Budget CIP and Grants Division, we developed the operating budget. That's what Chris was talking about tonight. That's kind of a year-long ongoing process. Our budget's around $850 million per year, and we have around 3,000 employees. So it's a pretty big and complex budget with a variety of different funding sources. We have the Community Investment Plan, and that's a 5-year capital plan. And in our city, how we define capital is if it's a project that becomes a city's asset at the end, it has a 10-year useful life, and it has a cost of $50,000 or more. So if it has a useful life less than 10 years or is less than $50,000, you're going to see that in the operating budget, even if it's a project. Anything over $50,000 with a useful life of 10 years, look to our CIP, you'll see when those projects are planned. And so our 5-year CIP plan, the last one that was adopted, was over $1.5 billion for the 5 years. And it had around 300 capital projects that were planned or underway in the city. So it's kind of big and complex. We have a lot of different moving pieces. And we are also responsible for centralized grants management. And so what that means is that our office centralizes with folks from transportation and mobility, from public works, and other areas to apply for and to administer grants. And the reason that's important is because at any time we can have 100 open grants. So we want to know that we're applying for the grants that are the highest priorities of the city, that we're meeting our deadlines, that we're in compliance, and that we're fully utilizing all of the funding sources available. Sometimes that takes interdepartmental coordination that we can help to facilitate. And then the last piece of what Budget CIP and Grants Division is responsible for is the financial planning and monitoring. We do quarterly reports and updates on our budget to actual forecasts. We're always looking forward to figure out, do we need to make adjustments? What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? During COVID, oh my goodness, I think we reforecasted the budget probably 8 to 10 times. We were constantly looking at what revenues were coming in month by month because they weren't coming in as we planned. And we were making adjustments along the way to make sure at the end of the year, we were going to end the year in a strong financial position. So that's the last piece for Budget CIP and Grants. And then Structural Innovation Division, they're more the strategic planning, performance management. We're making sure we're, as an organization, doing things using best practices, and that we have long and short-term plans and goals that we're aiming for. And we really align the budget piece with the strategic planning piece through the budget process. So just here's a list of some example reports that we put together. Folks don't really love reports, but the process of reporting out is important because we make sure that there's that accountability piece where each of the departments is reporting on their open grants. Each of the departments and project managers are reporting on the open capital projects. At any given time, if a member of the public has a question, we know where to go. We have a centralized systems and approaches. And so, it's a long list, but these are the sorts of reports that we do. And I'm not sure. Okay. Really quick, an overview of the budget process. Chris talked about this a little bit. We kick off the budget process in January, and we finish it with public hearings in September. The reason it's such a long and complicated process is there's a lot of state laws that dictate when and how we do things. So for example, our charter says the manager has to submit a balanced budget to them in the month of July. Our state laws say that we have to give certain information property appraisers to put on your trim notices. And then the public hearings in September are mandated by state law. So this is one of my favorite quotes: plans are nothing, planning is everything. So, you know, the actual document is really not what's important. The process is really important to make sure we're dotting our I's, crossing our T's, involving a variety of folks along the way. So if you've been in the city long enough, we talk about this all the time. Since 2008, our millage rate has stayed the same, 4.1193. Everybody probably knows that number. Really what that is that's the amount that our residents pay per $1,000 of taxable value to support the city's operations. So over good times and bad times, we've kept that rate the same. And you can see when the property values were going down, we lost the amount of revenues in red by not changing the rates. And then starting in 2018, we're finally back to what we were bringing in 2007. And we've been increasing since then. So along the way, we've had to make adjustments to service levels and staffing. We've deferred some capital projects. And, you know, we did that with the goal of, you know, keeping the millage rate affordable for our residents and for businesses. And that's really helped us to attract businesses into our area. There's a variety of different revenue types in our general fund. Everyone really thinks about our taxes when they think about general fund budget, but we do have charges for services and fines and forfeitures. Those are typically police tickets that are written and things like that. And then we have some interest earnings and some revenues that come through the state to us that they share, which are half-cent sales tax. And these are revenues that were impacted last year during COVID. So really quickly, this is for the general fund only. Our all funds budget, again, was closer to 900 million. Everyone really thinks of the general fund budget, that's 368 million. Around 44% of that budget comes from ad valorem. A lot of people are surprised when you say that because people think of property taxes funding a lot of your general fund operating budget. We really only get around 44%. So we have a very diversified revenue sources, which is good. So when one thing goes down, we can kind of make up for that in another area. Our bond raters, when they come in, they really like to see that this pie chart is, you know, diversified and we're not relying on just one revenue source to fund our budget. And where the money goes, you know, it's pretty clear from looking at the pie chart that over 75% of our expenditures are in 3 key areas for the city: Parks and Rec, Fire Rescue, and Police. So those are our key services that we provide to the community, and they do consume most of the general fund budget. So we do long-term financial planning for a few different reasons. We want to make sure we're protecting our community, preparing for the future, and we want to make sure we're stimulating long-term and strategic thinking. And we want to make sure we communicate to you all, our stakeholders, what's happening, and to give you a sense of assurance that we know it's going to happen, not just this year, and we have plans into the future. So some components of our financial forecasts: time, scope, frequency, and content. We look at the future from a 10-year perspective. So each year during budget development. So right now we are working with our consultants, Stantec. And what we do is we take this year's preliminary budget, we put it into the models, and we make a lot of assumptions. We say our contractual wage obligations, say that COLA, we plug in all the different requirements from our union contracts and from our negotiated agreements with the county and others, to make sure we're planning for everything we need to do into the future. That'll be presented to the Budget Advisory Board and the Commission next Tuesday at a joint commission meeting with the Budget Advisory Board. It starts at 11:30. So that's when Stantec's going to share with the Commission and Budget Advisory Board what the preliminary budget looks like over the next 10 years. And then we're able to do some scenarios. So the commission might say, what if we raise the millage rate by X? Or what if we do this? They have an interactive model that really allows us to talk through scenarios other than what staff has prepared. So we prepare a base level scenario, which we are typically very conservative. And then the mayor and commissioners or budget advisory board might want to see other scenarios. And we prepared some of those that we can work through with them. We maintain the financial models for all of our major funds. So we don't do them for the smaller funds like the cemetery fund or the arts and science fund, but for water, sewer, building fund, airport, all of our major ones, we're going to prepare 10-year models for those. And we'll go through all the key assumptions with the relevant stakeholders, and then we publish those. So this is an example of what the interactive model looks like. So you can see for 2020, the 4.1193, we do different assumptions for taxable value increases over the years. We look at what that does to our fund balance, and we look at our CIP spending. Those are some key things we look at the panel level. And as a result of all of the hard work we do, this is one of my proudest things in my 9 years with the city is for the first time last year, we got AAA bond ratings. So that was like a lot of hard work from the manager, thank you, and the commission and others making some tough choices. We have AAA, which is the strongest. It's like getting an A+, on your report card. So that means that it results in lower interest rates when we borrow for water, sewer, the police headquarters, when we're borrowing for the parks bond. Our city is going to get the lowest interest rates. I think we got like 2% on our last debt issuance. It was really, really low, like a little less than 2%. Some of the things they looked at was the size of our fund balance, which kind of indicates to them our level of liquidity, our budgetary policies, practices, and flexibility, the management practices, and the sustainability practices, which Nancy talked about, or Dr. Gassman talked to you about last time when she was here. So the last piece is citizen involvement. How can you become involved more in your city's budget? The Budget Advisory Board is a great way of becoming involved. The mayor and commission each appoint 2 members. So we have a total of 10 members on our Budget Advisory Board. Their means to bring Fort Lauderdale residents into the city's budget process and to increase transparency and accountability. So if you don't want to be a member, you can show up to any of the board meetings. There's an opportunity at every meeting for public input. So you are able to share your opinions on things, to listen to presentations if something interests you. We meet one Wednesday each month, but then during budget season, we meet every Wednesday. So the Budget Advisory Board has a total of 17 meetings during the year that you can go to. So we're constantly meeting, if you're interested, it'll be the 8th floor now. We've been working remotely for a year. So our first meeting back in person will be tomorrow night. So, 8th floor, you're welcome to join us. They provide the city with the taxpayers' input and perspective throughout the budget development process. They review projections, estimates, or department requests, and they advise the city commission regarding service levels, tax rates, assessments, and user fees. And then they'll submit those informal recommendations back to the commission. They really ask us a bunch of questions. So it's really good. So we prepare all of this detailed information and it's presented to them, and they ask tons of questions. They keep us on our toes. It's a really, really great way to ensure transparency and to make sure that, we're incorporating the opinions of taxpayers and the public into the process. We also on our website have a financial transparency portal. So it's an interactive model where you can see how funds are spent. It allows you to drill down at a variety of different levels. So that's at fortlauderdalepl.opengov.com, or you can go just to the city's, type in budget and it'll come up on our page as well. And then during budget development, after we get to the proposed budget, which will be in July, most of your commissioners will send you out an email to say, please go to the general fund balancing act software. And it's an opportunity. It starts at balance, which is the city manager's proposed budget. And it allows residents or anyone interested to rebalance the budget. So if you think the manager is recommending too much for police, and instead you would give more money to fire, you can do that as long as you get back to balance. And then you can submit your recommendations, and all of those get summarized and shared back with the commission as part of the budget process. So you'll be getting that probably in July as a link. So please check it out. And then also, so you've continued to involve me or other members of OMB in your civic association meetings. You can attend the BAB, engage with the budget via the tools we talked about, attend a public hearing, which are scheduled for September 8th or 13th. And you're always able to communicate directly with your elected officials about your preferences. So Chris talked to you a little bit about the next steps. We had the preliminary budget to the commission today, so that'll be published on our website. It's actually my favorite document. Like, I think it's better than any of the other documents because it's like one memo with a variety of attachments, and it really tells the story of how we got to balance this year. Chris gave you a couple of highlights, but it's worthwhile to check it out. We have the joint meeting we talked about, which is June 15th. And then on July 6th, the proposed budget, which is the giant book, and then CIP will go to the commission. And between July and July 6th and the public hearings, that's where the public can review those documents and provide any input as to anything you may believe is missing. And then the public hearings are on the 8th and the 15th. So, and if you have any questions, I would be open for those.
Laura, terrific. You know, finance is a tough topic. I really appreciate the way you curated that presentation, delivered it so clearly. Just hats off to department heads at the city. I see two questions in the chat, one from Marilyn and one from Leanne. And I think Leanne's question is interesting, right? How do our cost per capita, cost per for City of Fort Lauderdale compare to other municipalities? And are there any instances where we have a much higher cost than other cities? And would there be an explanation for that? And Leanne points to the police department specifically. So that's her question. And Marilyn's question is, Marilyn, I can't find it. Why don't you just ask your question, okay? And you can answer the first question.
Yeah, so it's really hard to compare apples to apples with cities. So we certainly try to do that. But I can give you an example for the police department. We have mounted units. We have, special canine units and SWAT teams. And not every city is a full service city. So we definitely can compare it per capita. And that's actually done on the state's website. You can go on the state's website and they look at just CAFR data, which is the comprehensive annual financial report, which it looks at our actuals for the year and it compares it to other cities. But it's never really similar. I can send you guys that link though. But so yeah, we do compare. But we mostly like to compare to the service levels that we want to provide to our residents.
And Marilyn, are you there? Can you ask your question?
My question is a technical question. When I look at those budget, the budget pie chart, and I always see transfers out. It's not a killer number, but it's a substantial number. Could you just explain what transfers out means?
Yeah, so from an accounting perspective, you're required to account for different types of expenditures in different ways. So from the general fund, we have to transfer funds to different funds to account for them. So for example, we have to transfer to special obligation bonds. So we issued special obligation bonds to pay for part of our pension obligation at one point. And we can't pay for the general fund. We first have to transfer them into the debt fund. And that's the accounting treatment. So typically the transfers out are related to an accounting treatment for those funds. So another example is the general capital CIP. In order to fund capital projects, you can't fund them directly in the operating budget. Remember, we talked about that $50,000, useful life of 10 years. We call that Fund 331 or the General Capital Fund. So in order to fund those projects, that's part of that transfer out. So part of that money goes into that fund. So it's a list of different items that require a different accounting treatment and aren't actually direct expenditures to the general fund.
So it's not transfers out to somebody else. It's transfers to another portion of the budget.
To a different fund. Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
And there's another question from Michelle. Where are the CRA funds located in the budget?
Yeah, so CRA is interesting. So we used to have, so the Community Redevelopment Agency had 3 areas, so 3 separate pots, and now it has 2. The beach actually sunsetted. Fiscal year 2020 was the first year that it was sunsetted, I believe. So in 2021 budget, it's not part of our budget. But how it works is for the Northwest Progressive CRA, the general fund has to transfer out to the CRA fund, the equivalent of the growth. So at the time the CRA was created, it essentially locks in the value. So let's say the value of those properties was in any growth between that $1 million and where the value is today. The difference at our taxable value is what we have to transfer into the CRA fund. And then other governments, such as the hospital district in Broward County, are also part of that plan. So they're doing the same thing where they're providing us with their contributions based upon that locked in value. And that creates a budget for the Community Redevelopment Agency or in each area. And so that's budgeted in our budget, but it requires a special process by which we have a separate board, advisory board for each CRA that looks at those expenditures. Then it goes to the commission, who also serves as the CRA board of directors. And so it's just like extra steps in the process in order to appropriate those funds. I don't know if that makes sense, but it still is part of the city's budget. It's actually an expenditure to the general fund, and that expenditure to the general fund becomes a revenue to the CRA fund along with some other revenues in order to help development of those areas identified.
I think that's a reasonable explanation. Michelle, you can weigh in if it is not. Stephanie has a question. What does a full service city mean? And Mary Peliquin has weighed in with an op-ed about mounted police units, which I agree with.
We actually have a horse replacement plan, which people always laugh when they see that. So this year, I believe we're replacing 2 horses and a dog or something. So as they're aging out of, they essentially retire, and then we actually replace them. And there's a special field they do, but every time we release the preliminary budget, we always get asked about where do the horses go? What happens to the dogs? So that they're all in good hands after they retire. They just don't have to work anymore. So yeah, I agree. I also am an animal lover myself. Full service city means we do it all ourselves. So we're the very opposite of like a Weston, Florida. So Weston, Florida provides all of their services through contracts. So they don't have employees. The city of Fort Lauderdale provides all of our services using our own employees. So we have a water sewer operation. We have 2 plants. We've got the 5 Ash and the Peel Dixie plant. So our employees are actually at those water treatment plants, treating the water. Our employees are the ones who are repairing the pipes. We have our own police department. So we don't contract with BSO. We hire our own police officers. We have our own police chief, our own fire department. We don't contract for any of those services. That's what a full service city means, is that we're providing all of those services ourselves instead of relying upon third-party contracts.
Makes sense, makes sense. And just one last question from Dr. Getz. He always asks the tough questions. So his, I don't know if this is an assumption or I'm sure this is all evidence-based. He would not say it otherwise, but pension deficits will come due over the next decade, turning into hundreds of millions in obligation that will cost citizens money. Are you aware or understand what that?
Well, no, Dr. Getz, when our pension funded liability is one of the highest in Florida. Can you say more about what you're talking about?
Yeah, they use pension machinations to to justify that they meet their obligations. But if you use it like any regular corporation would, where you compare current assets versus their obligations, they're probably only 60 to 70% funded, meaning that the rest will come due from the citizens.
I believe our funded liability is over 90. I can double check with Susan and her team, but the fund, we get an actuary report that's performed every year, and they tell us what our annual required contribution is, and that's the same throughout the state of Florida. In some states, you don't have to pay in any given year. In the state of Florida, we're required to fund the calculated annual required contribution, and we budget for that every single year, as well as our pension obligation payment. And it was over 90 when the report came in this year, but I can give you the specific amount. And I think if you want to talk more about the technicalities of actuary reports, I don't think I would be the person to, I wouldn't be the best person to debate that with, but I do know that we have to, as a city, fund our annual required contribution every year. And I can get a copy of that actuary report for you guys if you like.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Laura. And folks are asking for your presentation. I'm hoping people are comfortable navigating the council website, but if you go to the homepage, the meetings and the agendas and the meeting minutes and the presentations, if there are presentations, are shared, or a link to them is shared on the website. So that's where it will be after we get done with tonight and post the meeting minutes. Any final questions for Laura? Okay, so why don't we just share our thanks to Laura? Appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and have a great evening, everyone.
We are likely to have you back come budget time. I guess we are at budget time, but after June 15th.
Anytime. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we're wrapping things up. We've got 4 agenda items, and I think we actually don't have anyone signed up to do round robin speeches this month. If I am mistaken, if someone did agree to do this tonight, a 60-second elevator speech about your neighborhood or community, please speak up so we can hear from you. Okay. Okay, so we'll move on. Melinda, I'm gonna, Ethel or Estel has raised their hand. Go ahead.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm assuming this is the right time to bring this up, but I just kind of wanted to give a general overview of something that the Riverside Park Residents Association has been really heavily involved with over the past year. And that's been advocating for Stranahan High School. We've spoken at the education advisory boards, we've gone to the commission, we've gone to the school board. And I think it's a really important topic, not just for our neighborhood where Stranahan resides, those neighborhoods that are zoned for Stranahan, but also as a whole, because there are elementary schools, middle schools, different schools that either are currently affected by the bond or are in the process of being evaluated for replacement or renovation coming up in the future. And it's really important. Stranahan's kind of, you know, at the forefront right now. I'm going to be just real brief because I know it's been a long meeting today, but I would like to, I've been working with some different advocates and task forces and different groups that have been following not just Fort Lauderdale's schools, but other schools that have been affected by the bond. Stranahan High School was one of what they called the big 3, and that was one of the poster children that was used to help pass an $800 million bond. It's become very apparent that $800 million was not enough at the time, and it's certainly not enough now and going forward. Whether you're an advocate for education, an advocate for specific schools, if you're just a taxpayer wondering where your money's going, it's really interesting information to see the proportions of money that leaves the city of Fort Lauderdale and the East schools and that goes out west. So I was hoping that perhaps in conjunction with the advocacy groups and the advocates and the task forces that I've been working with, that I could put together an email that we could distribute to everyone here this month, kind of detailing some of the information, and those that want to get involved more can, and those that don't can, you know, just read and move on.
Okay, thank you, Esther. We are very well aware of the Stranahan High School need. And I sit on the EAB and we know Broward County School Board is progressing forward in different ways on that. So we appreciate this issue. Out of respect for everyone that's here, we usually curate agenda items ahead of time. So what do is invite you to our next council board meeting. Let's talk about this. Let's bring this up at the general meeting. We can have a longer conversation, but 100% agree, especially for schools in neighborhoods like where Stranahan is. It's long overdue. We appreciate it. We're fully on board with it, but let's allocate proper time and conversation.
Is it possible though that we can get some information out prior to that? That's all I'm asking for. I just want an email communication to go out with some facts.
Yeah, go ahead and send it to me or to Mary and we'll take care of distribution. Okay.
Yep. Nope. That's it. I didn't want to speak specifically on it. I think that there's a lot of neighborhoods that really don't know or understand what's going on. And I'd like to just get that information out there.
Right. And that is, also a big part of the EAB's role. So thank you very much. We're going to move on because we're almost at 8 o'clock and out of time. So thank you, Esther. And Melinda, I'm going to turn it over to you for the treasurer's report. Melinda, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I was on mute. So thanks, Colleen. I see you have the treasurer's report up there. So just a quick report to the membership since I did it a month ago on May 11. We've actually had, just for the memberships perspective, only one additional check received since I last spoke from Palmyra Village Condominium. No additional payments by PayPal. The SunTrust account is at $12,210.46 and with our PayPal at $1,882.05. Total in all accounts, $14,092.51. And again, attached to the report at the back is the log for the current fiscal year 22 of all payments. So as you scroll down, Colleen, we will get to our most recent payment, which was Palmyra Village, which was our 43rd renewal. And I will take any comments or questions.
Wonderful.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. That's great. Short and sweet and wonderful as always. All right, so.
Can I interrupt? I have a question along these lines. I thought that this council was made up of about 60 some civic associations, and then I heard it was more like 40 some, and I see this 43. What is it about? How many neighborhoods?
So there are in total, I think, it depends on how you define it, right? Between 70 and 80. And they're a combination of neighborhood associations, merchant associations, and some variation thereof. Within that, there's a subset that are officially recognized civic associations by the city. And then I think a subset of that, plus a few, are members of the council. So these are paid memberships with the Council of Fort Lauderdale. So not all neighborhood associations are members of the council, and the council and not all neighborhood associations are officially recognized by the city. So, we're trying to encourage more participation and involvement across the city. So, we get requests and inquiries on a regular basis. So yes, we'd like to see more neighborhoods participate.
Okay,
Did
thank
that
you.
answer your question?
Yep, thank you.
Okay. All right, terrific. So last piece of business is review and acceptance of minutes from last month's general meeting. Any conversation or chat or edit about the minutes from last month? Otherwise, I'll call for a motion.
I move to approve the meetings as they stand.
And I will
Jesús
second.
Castillo.
And Jim seconded. Any opposed? All right, minutes passed. All right, with that, we're at 7:59, pretty good. Reminder, no general meeting in July. We'll open it up for anyone else that wants to say anything or make final comments before we adjourn. I feel like I rushed Esther a little bit, but Marilyn, you wanted to support her. I appreciate that.
I definitely did. And I think it's, I'm worried about the timing because we don't have a meeting in July, but we don't have a board meeting to precede the July meeting. The board will not meet again until in July. So I wanted to ask Esther, what is the timing on this? Is this a time sensitive matter?
It is actually, from what I understand, I should in the next week or so know, but like I said, we'll send out a communication with timelines, getting everybody up to speed, but I believe that this may potentially be going to a workshop as early as August. So I really wanted to get the information out there, and those that are interested in the causes and feel like their neighborhoods might on any level even just want to be there physically or virtually on calls to show support in numbers. We just really want to get that information out there and allow people to understand what's kind of going on, not only with Stranahan, but our schools east as a whole.
Yeah, but and also, Estelle, it's not a question of do you have a child who goes to Stranahan or is Stranahan in your immediate neighborhood? This is a more global issue. We contribute a lot of money to that Parks Bond Fund as a city, as citizens. And we want to make sure that our schools, all of our schools in Fort Lauderdale, get their fair share and are treated, fairly in the distribution of those funds. So again, I just want people to understand this is not, a local issue. If your kid goes to Stranahan, this is a city issue. In my opinion.
It's a city issue with equity, and it's been going on for quite a while. And the $800 million bond is, at the forefront right now, and the inequities, I'm saying this as an opinion right now, are very apparent. But there'll be more information put out there. But you'd be surprised how much of our tax dollars are actually going outside of the city here.
Okay, so we'll close down the conversation, send us the material. Estelle, thank you very much. Tara also recommended that we bring JJ back upon the return to school. I think that's a pretty good idea. I'm jam-packed back in the classroom. They're full on for summer school anyway, right? But yeah, I think we'll have JJ back. We will notify everyone about remote versus in-person for August, because that'll be our next meeting date. And we can have a conversation about Stranahan as well. And I know EAB is actively involved in this. It's kind of part of their central mission. So thank you all very much for participating tonight. Have a wonderful evening, and we will see you soon, and be safe and stay cool. I guess we're getting to that point of the year, right? Yeah, look forward to round robins next month. Come on, folks. You saw Mary's video. Let's go. Let's go. We'll show.
Thanks, Colleen. Great meeting.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
Bye.
Bye,
everyone.
Great job. Thank you. Bye.